Last night, I heard a little boy beg his mom not to go into a liquor store. Reddit, what things have you overheard that have broken your heart? Some background, I live in Oklahoma, where the only place you can purchase alcohol besides Low Point beer is in a licensed, dedicated liquor store, which can only be open at certain times of day. Anyway, I'm heading to the one by my house to get a bottle of scotch. I'm walking in, when I hear a little boy crying, "Mommy, you can't go in there. You don't need liquor." His mom replies, "Yes, I do. Now shut up and wait in the car." I haven't really been able to think of much else since then. Reddit, what have you overheard that's weighed down your heart and mind since you've heard it? Not exactly overheard, but last week I was chilling out at a buddy's house. At around midnight a bunch of cop cars and an ambulance show up to his neighbor's house. We notice the cops are talking to the little boy who lives there. We know the boy pretty well, he is a good friend of my buddy's son. We're going to call him Martin, and he is about 7. After the police leave, Martin is sitting outside, and we call him over to see if everything is okay. Martin's grandpa lives with him, so we assumed something happened with him, because of the ambulance. But, as soon as we say, "Hey Martin, what was going on there?" he instantly yells, "Nobody hit me. My daddy doesn't hit me." It made us so sad. For my son's 9th birthday, I took my son and a handful of friends to the movies, then to pizza, then they all slept over. On the way home from pizza, the kids were commenting on how great the night was, and were saying thank you, etc. I said in reply, "We love having kids over." Out of the blue one boy quietly whispered to me, "My mom doesn't love me." Broke my heart in 2 bits. I asked why, he said that, and he said, "She always left me. I would wake up and she would be gone." Come to find out, he had just been placed with his dad that he barely knew. The state had taken him away from his mom for neglect, leaving him every night alone to go to the bar. It had been going on for years, and the neighbors would hear him crying alone and call the cops. She is a raging alcoholic and a drug addict, still. His dad had only met him once before, and was currently living with a new girlfriend, and she didn't like kids. His son was now sleeping on the floor of the girlfriend's apartment as there was no room for him. It was fucking heartbreaking. To make matters worse, he sat alone every day after school on the steps of the library waiting for his dad, sometimes till past 7 p.m. When I found out, I had him over every single day, eating a snack, doing homework together with my son, eating dinner most nights. Less than a year later, his father asked if I could take him for a while. He had broken off with a girlfriend and had nowhere to go, and nowhere to bring his son. No problem. I'm a single mom of 1 son, but I always have room for anyone who needs to stay. His dad brought over all of his clothes in a garbage bag, everything he owns. He never officially was mine, but I became his adopted mom since that time, bringing him to the doctors, going to parent-teacher conferences, music concerts, etc. He is 19 now and doing fantastic. He made it through high school at an honors AP level, and then went to college on full scholarship. But better than that, he is an awesome person, funny, smart, kind, loving. I love my adopted son. TLDR, drug addict mom, non-committed dad, and a sad little kid who changed our lives. I was at the local casino around 15 years ago, and they were dragging a woman out for causing a disturbance. She was yelling, "He is spending our rent money." Apparently he was at the table and wouldn't stop playing, and she was trying to interrupt it. Made me super sad. I think the real sadness here is that the manager would still allow someone to play after this. I agree. Most managers would probably bang this person if the significant other asked them to. I didn't overhear this, but it seems similar. When I was a child, my brother used to kick the shit out of me every day when my parents weren't home. It wasn't just fighting, it was torture. He used to tie me up, shoot me with BB guns, whip me with tea towels, elastic bands, have huge elastic band phobia these days, heating up teaspoons on cooker and putting them on my legs, etc. Not nice, especially seeing as I am a girl 3 years his junior. One day my mom was out for a rare night out playing darts, and my dad was supposed to stay home with us. I think I was about 9 or 10. He is an alcoholic, so nothing will stand in his way of going to the pub, which was right at the bottom of my road, so he wasn't far away. I think he thought that made it okay. Well, my brother had been hinting at what he was going to do when my dad went out. Sitting in the living room, he had a BB gun on his lap covered by a magazine, which he kept showing me subtly. Needless to say, I was terrified. I begged my dad not to go out, crying and pleading. I never used to grass on my brother, no matter what he did, but I was so scared that I was crying and crying, asking my dad to stay home just this once. He knew what was up, but he ignored it and went out anyway. I sat at his bedroom window and watched him leave. My neighbor saw me and told me years later it was the saddest thing she had seen, because I was obviously so scared. Needless to say, I was terrorized as expected. Edit. Thank you all so much for your comments. In response to questions which I have been asked a couple of times now. We do maintain a relationship where I am basically the person who sorts his life out for him. It's hard, but I am basically his replacement mother. No, I have never confronted him over the things he did. I don't know if I can. I work in a castle that holds medieval banquets, one side of which is that we give out free wine. It's 2.5 hours long, so if you try, you've got enough time to get pretty shit-faced. One day, the banquet was finishing, and we were saying goodbye to the guests. This one woman, she was fairly trolleyed. Knocking into the walls, knocking shit off of them, insulting me, my manager, and her manager who was up visiting. Her husband was out in the smoking area outside, ignoring the situation. Apart from sending his probably 8-year-old son in to try and get her out of the building. Come on mom, time to go. Dad says we have to leave now, the castle is closing, etc. I could hear in his voice that he'd seen this behavior repeatedly. It was pleading, and sad, but resigned at the same time. So we got her out the door, myself and my colleagues went to change out of costume, and collected our tips. Maybe 5 minutes later, I left by the same door, and headed to the car. I found the woman a few yards off the gravel path, ass over tit in a large patch of briars. She'd gone to look at the view of the bay, the castle's beside the sea, slipped, and fallen completely into the thorns. Covered in blood from 100 tiny cuts. The son was bleating like Simba trying to wake up Mufasa after the stampede. Come on mom, you can do it, just try to stand up, I know you can mom. Please, please, just try mom. I don't know how he held it together. There were tears in his voice, if not in his eyes. And the mother ducking dad? He was down at the road at the end of the path, maybe 60 yards away, leaning on a wall. Smoking a cigarette, without a care in the world. I walked down to him, and hissed at him to go and get his car, and drive it to the foot of the path, as his wife was incapable of walking to the car park. He was as aloof as Mother ducking Viserys Targaryen, and nonchalantly sauntered off to the car park. Me and 2 other staff members managed to get her upright, and I cleaned up her cuts with a medkit from work. She was out of her mind by this point, laughing and gurgling and whipping her ducking blood over us. And her kid embarrassed and ashamed, and crying nearly. God, I simultaneously so sad and angry driving home after work that night. TLDR. If you know your wife is an alco, don't bring her and your kid to an all-you-can-drink buffet. A friend of mine got drunk at a barbecue. Kids and husband were there too. When it was explained to her that someone would drive her home, she went ballistic. I hurried her kids into my car, didn't have keys, just didn't want them to hear the cursing, ranting awfulness spewing from their mother. Her oldest son asked me what was wrong with her, and I explained. Mommy just drank too much bad stuff and it has made her sick. She's just sick right now, but she will feel better later. He said, oh, she's drunk again. I felt so horrible. Her youngest was crying, and she kept asking me, how much longer until mommy feels better? I didn't know what to say. I hated everything about that night. In line at Taco Bell, I was irritated at how long this woman and her kid were taking. Until I found out what was going on. She was counting ducking pennies. The kid said, it's okay mom, we don't need the food items. And I swear to God I thought I was on the set of a live Charles Dickens story. You could see they didn't have much. The mom looked malnourished, both skinny. I went up to the counter and said, "No, how much is it? It's a holiday gift from your neighbor." And the lady tried to refuse, but I said no. This wasn't some huge charity on my part, not trying to get karma for that. It was only like 3 or 4 more bucks. I paid the amount more than she needed, and she thanked me. It didn't make me really feel much better. All I could think about, what are they going to do for ducking breakfast? I overheard a maintenance worker in my apartment arguing with his drunk wife one night. Her son, his stepson, about 5 years old, yelled, "I hate you, you are not my dad." Pretty sure the guy started crying afterwards. He's such a nice guy too. My little brother is adopted. And we told him, so he knew. One shitty teenage day, he was like, "I don't care, it's not like you're my real parents anyway." I think they were fighting because he was grounded, and he wanted to go to a friend's party anyway. He never said it again, and still feels guilty about it. My point being, even though he's 5, the kid probably will realize he overstepped a boundary, unless he's just a little shit. I was at Kroger at about 8 PM one evening. I had just gotten off work and needed to get my son some alimentum before heading home. While walking through the produce section, I noticed 2 women with 5 children. The women looked awful, very eaten, dirty hair and clothes, their faces were scabbed. Definitely could have been meatheads. 3 of the 5 children they had with them did not have shoes on. Their cart was full of soda, beer, pizza rolls, etc. There was a small toddler in the seat of the cart. He was asking his mom if he could have a banana. The mom ignored him and kept talking to her friend. The boys asked again for a banana, saying, "Mama, I'm so hungry, I have nana." Again the meth mom ignored him. The boy reached over and tried to grab a banana, and the mom slapped his little hand so hard and grabbed his face and screamed, "You don't touch that. That's not for you. You grab something again, I'ma beat your ass in front of everyone here." Then shoved his head backward. The toddler shrank down into a ball and hugged himself and whispered, "I so hungry mama." The mother ignored him again. My heart started banging in my chest. That poor baby was hungry. It was 8 PM, and you know he hadn't had dinner yet. Hell, by the looks of his mom, he may not have eaten at all that day. That bitch was pushing around a cart full of trash and didn't want to spend a lousy 25 cents on a piece of fruit for her kid. I followed that bitch around the entire store with my cell phone set to take a picture, waiting for her to hurt her kid again. I fantasized about grabbing the little guy and taking him home and giving him a bath, clean clothes that fit, and feeding him a hot meal. She didn't slap him again, but I listened to her whole conversation about how she was gonna drop her kids off with their useless daddy, so she and her friend could go party. When they got up to the checkout, they were unloading their groceries when the little boy tried to help set items on the belt. The mom went nuts again, yelling at her kid, and went to grab his arm. When she noticed me holding my phone up to take a pic, she let go, paid for her groceries with her Ohio directional card, and left. When they were out the door, the cashier looked at me with sad eyes and said, "I saw you following them. Too bad you didn't get that picture." Some people should not be allowed to breed. I did follow them outside and saw them getting on the city bus. I went back into the store to pay for my goods and asked the clerk if there was any way to look up the last customer because of the shopper's cards they use. I did get a name and called Child Protective Services. I was told, "We will look into it." I never heard anything else. In the state of Ohio, you are allowed as a parent to discipline your children. It is only considered abuse if you use a closed fist, leave bruises, break bones, etc. Corporal punishment is considered abuse, but not slapping your child. Sad, isn't it? I did what I could. Her name is in their system now. I went home and cried as I rocked my son, thinking about that hungry little boy and wondered if he ever got dinner. TLDR, I have never wanted to kidnap a child so badly in all my life.